You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
I'm back. Rutrance for Black and White Sports 2. Well, we're going to talk about Tim Scott. Of course, he took part in the Fox News debate last night, the Republican debate. For the record, I watched Tucker and Trump, and then I have watched clips from the debate this morning. Vivek, I thought, showed out real good last night. I didn't think DeSantis did too awful well. Tim Scott did okay. But it was mainly Vivek. I thought Nikki Haley and Mike Pence were just awful. Just awful. But you guys know that one of the main things we have covered on both sports channels is, of course, biological men seeping over in to women's sports, creating a complete competitive imbalance, dominance, and in our opinion, we've talked about this, a potential safety issue. Now, a lot of your wokes, it's kind of funny. A lot of the women that are in the LGBTQ community have been advocating all of a sudden for men to be allowed in women's sports. Completely nonsensical. I mean, wait a minute. You went from being the radical feminist to all of a sudden just selling out women like that, even though you like women? Question mark? Very confusing. Megan Rapinoe is one that comes to mind, right? Sue Bird, her partner from the WNBA, who's now retired, is another one. Well, Tim Scott made some very interesting closing arguments last night in the debate, and, well, he made it very clear how he feels, and he's 100% on target about transgender athletes in women's sports. And I really liked how he worded this. This is Fox News. Tim Scott from South Carolina used his 45-second closing arguments during Wednesday night's Republican presidential debate to take shots at trans women participating in women's sports. The GOP presidential candidate brought up his mother instilled in him when he was younger, and it eventually led to the final point that he received some cheers from the crowd. Quote, "If you're an able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. And if you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men." Now, we know a lot of people have been under fire. I saw a lot of radicals outside of some rally. In fact, I think it was up there at the debate location in Milwaukee. They were standing outside, and Riley Gaines was outside, and they were chanting very, very vulgar and vile things towards Riley Gaines. Now, we know Riley Gaines, of course, University of Kentucky, had to compete against Lia/Will Thomas in swimming, and he went out there and broke all kinds of NC2A records. Yeah, there's not a competitive advantage, my ass. Transgender athletes' inclusion in women's sports has been a hot topic in the country. Save Women's Sports has become a rallying cry for many, including Riley Gaines and Caitlyn Jenner/Bruce, and others who use their platform to speak out against the disadvantages women and girls have when competing against trans women, when competing against biological men, Fox News. But that stance has received pushback as well, including from President Biden. In April, the House of Representatives passed the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, though not a single Democrat voted for it. In case you wanted to actually see what it is, Tim Scott said, let's listen.
I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I had the good fortune of a mom who worked 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men.
That brought
I'm
the
Tim
biggest
Scott.
response.
I'm asking you for your vote, and if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more information.
Okay, so that's what he had to say last night about it. But the White House said that if the bill went through the Senate, Biden would veto it, and that's the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Quote, schools, coaches, and athletic associations around the country are already working with families to develop participation rules that are fair and that take into account particular sports, grade levels, and levels of competition. As a national ban that does not account for competitiveness or grade level, H.R. 734 targets people who for who they are and therefore is discriminatory, the White House said of the bill. That hasn't stopped more than 20 states from passing new laws and regulating policies on trans women in women's sports. In Texas, SB 15, which was signed into law in June, prohibits biological males competing in women's sports in colleges and universities across the state. It followed a similar piece of legislation that Greg Abbott signed in 2021 that required public schools through high school level to have teams designated by students' sex assigned at birth. Amen. Scott State of South Carolina signed into law the Save Women's Sports Act in 2022, which banned transgender students from participating in girls' or women's sports in public schools and colleges. And I've only seen a couple of clips from what Tim Scott has said, but he always seems to carry himself very well. I kind of thought he had potential as a potential vice president. By the way, Tim Scott breaks all the narratives that the wokes want to lead you to believe, and the Democrats that want to pull every black person onto the plantation. He breaks all the narratives. Very successful, deep into politics, running for president. Quality of life is great. There is no such thing as oppression as long as you're willing to bust your ass for whatever it is you want to accomplish. Sometimes that does mean taking 2 jobs while you put yourself through school. Nobody says it's easy, but it's not easy for anybody. You know, that's the thing, and I think that's the misconception is, skin color holds you back. No, not if you're willing to apply yourself and you don't feel like you deserve to just be handed something. Of course it does not. Tim Scott breaks that narrative. He crushes that narrative. Now, what's funny is you would have thought Barack Obama getting elected to be the actual president twice, not once, but twice, would have also crushed that narrative and there would never be another argument again. But it didn't. In fact, it got worse, and some could argue his second term is what really just puked out all of the nonsense that we're now trying to clean up right here and now from a woke social justice radical ideology standpoint. I'm just calling it like it is. Tim Scott, I like him a lot. He's not beating Trump, and I think he's probably 4th or 5th behind right now. In fact, Vivek is probably 2 at this point. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.